Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Liz Sumner of Fox Point is a Democratic candidate in the 23rd Assembly District. The election is November 6th. Liz, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
From your website, we must end the era of going to referendums to fund our schools. Is that your top issue?
Yes, definitely. Fully funding public education is one of my top issues. Mm-hmm.
The current budget, as you know, does include a significant increase in aid to public schools.
Sure.
Do we need another big bump in aid to public schools next budget?
Yes. I mean,
Why?
Our funding levels aren't even at where they were in 2010. Our current legislature and governor advocated for removing over $1 billion from our public school education. And this most recent large investment that they're claiming is only half of that amount put back into it. So I think, we need to get back to the funding levels of 2010 and then also adjust for inflation.
If we had to come up with 200, 300, 400 million for our public schools, have you thought about ways to raise that additional revenue?
I mean, I think the money was there before, so I'm curious to see where it has gone, and I think it's it's setting priorities. I think that public education should just be one of our top priorities, and that's where we should be focusing our tax dollars.
The choice program, the voucher program, has grown Milwaukee, Racine, and now statewide.
Sure.
Should it expand further? What's your position on choice?
Yeah. My main issue with school choice is that this country was founded on a separation of church and state. So I just don't believe that public tax dollars should be going towards parochial education.
Okay. The debate over tax benefits, tax breaks for private companies, Foxconn was approved. Now Kimberly-Clark wants similar.
Correct.
Your position on how much help state government should give private companies?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think it's interesting. I'm wondering when the Republican Party got in the business of subsidizing private enterprise. I feel like that sort of goes against everything that they stand for. I personally believe that I think ultimately, unfortunately, what we're looking at in this day and age is that is how you get companies to come and create jobs. But I think there has to be a balance. I believe with the Foxconn deal, we gave it all away, and I don't. When it was coming up and when it was being looked at, this is a thing that I was thinking about, like what's going to stop other companies now from coming and wanting the exact same deals? And here we are. That's what we're seeing.
You're a member of the Fox Point Village Board.
I am.
Local governments like yours have been dealing with levy limits for 14 years.
Right.
Some local officials say it hurts their ability to provide local services.
Yeah.
Get rid of levy limits, loosen them, or keep them?
Well, I don't think that we should keep them. I think that there obviously has to be a limit on how much you can raise the levy every year. But I do think that there should be an increase, matching inflation or something. Just because, I'm experiencing it firsthand when we're budgeting in Fox Point. The costs of our services are going up every year. Costs to repair roads go up every year. But our village is so built out that we don't have any opportunities to increase our levy limit or our levy. So at some point, our expenses are going to surpass our revenues, and then we're going to be looking at taking on more debt to pay for operational expenses, or we're going to have to cut services. And I think the residents of my village, and I think municipalities all over the state, that's not a choice that they want to have to make.
Now you're limited to your levy limits you to new construction, right? And so you're saying your community is completely built out?
Yeah,
so there's very little new construction?
Correct, yeah. We did just have an opportunity last year where there was a public school that was owned by the school district that was sitting vacant and was costing the school district money, and school districts are strapped for cash, so they wanted to sell the building, and then the village board had to change the zoning on it to allow for development. So a put out, and it's being developed for apartments, and then a memory care facility. And I mean, it wasn't super popular, but for the most part, I mean, the residents of the village supported it. I think it ultimately will be a really positive development for our village. But I think that, we're seeing around the state that there are other municipalities that are being, are kind of put in positions where they have to accept developments that may not necessarily fit the character of their community, simply because they need the tax revenue. And it's a really tough choice to make. And unfortunately, these are decisions that are being made at the state level that are being forced upon the municipality. And yet it's the local electeds at the local level that are the ones that are really, having to make these tough choices, and then bearing the brunt of unhappiness in their communities.
The gridlock in the Capitol over how to pay for highways, bridges, maintenance, and construction. How would you like to see it solved? How would any tax increases any revenue increases you vote for?
Well, I know there's been talk of increasing the gas tax, which I do think is something that should be looked at. I think when everyone contributes a very small amount, it can add up to be something quite impressive, and could really make a difference in our transportation budget. I also think that we should be looking at allowing regional transportation authorities.
Could you support tolling? It's being discussed in the Capitol.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that as a real viable option. I think that I think it would be expensive to implement, and then I don't know. I think it would have like an undue impact on more like disadvantaged.
But willing to consider an increase in the gas tax?
Sure.
It hasn't gone up since 2006.
Yeah, absolutely.
The debate over the next budget for the Department of Corrections. Some Democratic candidates for governor said we should work towards cutting our prison population in half. 2 of our adult prisons were built in the 1800s. Do we need a new state prison?
I mean, I definitely think that we need to be incarcerating fewer individuals. I don't know that 50% is doable, within the next few years. I mean, I think that, if you look at our prison population compared to other states, I mean, we're at the top end of percentage of population that's incarcerated, and what does that say about our state? So I think it would be looking more at reform. Yeah, criminal justice reform.
Okay. Would that include legalizing recreational marijuana or medical marijuana?
Well, I mean, I definitely am for legalizing medical and recreational marijuana, absolutely. But I am sure that would have an impact on our prison population.
The UW system budget, we've had a freeze on resident undergrad tuition for 6 years. The governor would like that freeze to continue for a 7th and 8th year. Your thoughts? It's sort of this same issue, I think, with the levy limits. Expenses go up every year, and so your revenues need to as well. I think something that we could really be focusing on as far as higher education is helping students afford to be able to go to college, providing low interest loans, opportunities for loan forgiveness, if they serve the state in some way for, a period of time. As you meet residents of the 23rd Assembly District, what are their concerns about health care?
Prescription drug costs, just overall costs, I guess, of going to the doctor, and what that looks like if something really serious happens to them or to a member of their family, and the kind of financial impact that's going to have on them.
And how do you answer when they express these concerns about healthcare costs and prescriptions? Do you offer any ideas? Well,
I mean, I think at the state level there are some things that we can do. Starting with accepting Medicaid expansion dollars. I think we would see a reduction in costs in the private insurance market. My husband and I both own small businesses, so we buy our own health insurance, and so we know how it's the price has just been all over the place over the last few years, and so it's something that I can understand and really relate to when I'm talking to people.
Have you had to buy it on the marketplace under the Affordable Care Act?
Yes.
What about the reinsurance plan that was just approved? Is that going to help people like you and your husband that own small businesses?
Don't you know yet?
I don't know yet. I mean, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does state government have a role in recruiting and retaining doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals?
I think that the state government has a role in making our state attractive for people to want to locate to. I don't think that it's necessarily our job to actually fill positions.
State government and Delta Dental partner on a program that provides dental care in some medically underserved areas at low-income at clinics that serve the low income.
Sure.
Should that be a priority in the next Medicaid budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think that oral health is important to overall physical health. And so I think encouraging folks who may, forego going to the dentist in order to put food on their table or something, providing those opportunities, I think, is incredibly important.
As you meet voters, do many of them talk about the issues involving caregivers? The reason I ask is AARP says 578,000 Wisconsin residents are caregivers for family members or neighbors or loved ones.
Yeah.
And so the issue comes up, do we need a law or a new rule that would require hospitals to recognize and work with family members who are caregivers when someone they love is hospitalized? Has that come up?
No.
It has not.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay. Any other issues in the district that you've met voters that they bring up that we haven't discussed?
Well, I think the environment has really has been an issue that a lot of people have talked about as one of their top issues of importance.
Okay.
I think they're concerned about just some of the decisions that are being made, rollback in some of the regulations, exceptions that are being made for some companies that are moving here, and for large farms and the damage that they're doing to water sources. So that's really important. And then common sense gun laws. I think that a lot of people in my district are worried about their safety and aren't exactly sure that what has been done or what hasn't been done is the right way to go about keeping people safe.
We've just approved $100 million in school safety grants. Do we need to go beyond that and change gun laws, and if so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like that $100 million should have been invested in the public schools, in mental health care for kids, helping them identify when their friends seem to be struggling and could be heading down a path of violence, and instead of planning for evacuation protocols and stuff. I think when over 80% of the population believes that we should have background checks on all gun purchases, that just should be something that we should do. And I think that that alone could really make a difference in the safety of our population.
And finally, you want to highlight differences between you and the Republican incumbent who you're up against on November 6th?
Sure. To begin with, I serve in local government. I don't think he ever has. I'm a small business owner, so I know what it's like to run and grow a successful small business in Wisconsin. Also, as a representative on the village board, I have been very accessible to the people that live in my village and respond to them when they reach out to me, which is something that my opponent has not been known to do in all cases. And finally, I believe in science, and I believe that climate change is real. And I believe that the state should be doing something to help roll back the effects that our energy usage is having on our environment.
Thank you. Liz Sumner of Fox Point is a Democratic candidate in the 23rd Assembly District. The election is November 6th. Liz, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.